Alright, so I recently said something about conditional time updates versus unconditional time updates in Security Breach, and I never really elaborated on what I meant by that. So, conditional time updates are time updates that only happen once you've hit the previous time update that allows you to hit that. But there are also unconditional time updates that you can trigger at any time in the game. Then there are ones that kind of straddle the line between them, where you could make a case for putting them in either category. Okay, so there's one time update actually that is unavoidable, and that's 11:30. That's the only time update that is unavoidable. So you start the game at 11 p.m., and the time updates to 11:30 when you leave the vent out of Freddy's room. And Freddy's room is like the only solid, concrete, inescapable part of the entire game. Once you fall out of that vent at the beginning, that's when the sandbox experience of Security Breach starts. So that's at 11:30. However, if I were to go around messing around and I hit one of these future time triggers, the get out mission still exists. And if you get inside of Freddy while Freddy's room is loaded in, you'll get trapped in him, and it'll want you to walk down. And if you do, Vanessa will show up and talk to Freddy, and it'll do that whole intro sequence. But once you get to the part where Freddy's battery dies and he kicks you out, that never happens. You'll just get stuck in him. It has to be 11:30 for you to get kicked out of Freddy in that backstage area, and for the time to update to 11:45. However, if you walk, it's kind of east of the front doors, there's a big area, and if you go there, no matter what, even if it's 6 a.m., the time whooshes back to 12 a.m. there, no matter what. And that's when the doors close. And if you skip the beginning of the game, you can actually walk up to the open doors because you don't hit that trigger. But there's an invisible barrier in front of them, so you can't just walk outside. And so 12 o'clock is another unconditional one. Similarly, 12:30, I have no idea why for this one, but no matter what, the first time you enter the daycare, the time updates to 12:30, no matter what. And if you run fast enough, you could get past that time trigger before it loads in, but on the way out, you'll hit it. So, the time will go 12:30 when you enter the daycare for the first time. And then when you are walking on the stairs and you reach the top of the stairs, the lights go out and it turns to 12:55, and that's your first lights out segment. And right there, that's unconditional. Moon will always, and this lights out segment is unique from the other ones in the game. Moon behaves very weirdly here, and if you're in vicinity of the daycare and you get out of Freddy while the lights are out in this segment, Moon instantly kills you, no matter what. But I'm pretty sure that unlike these other lights out segments, if you get inside that recharge station outside of the daycare, I think the time will update to 1 o'clock anyway. But you would better not trigger 12:55 after doing that, because it severely breaks the game. Then we have several conditional time triggers, and that's because there's the split paths of the loading dock and L-chips. And the game thought, oh, they're going to come back to these places, so the time trigger must only exist once it's 1 o'clock. The time will only update to 1:15 once you enter these areas at 1 o'clock. So you can fall through the Music Man vent into the vat room behind the kitchen, turns to 1:15, and when you walk inside L chips, it turns into 1:15, but only if it is currently 1 o'clock. And also I put two 1:15s here. Anyway, the time updates to 1:30 only if it's 1:15, and that is by beating the respective security badge missions. So if you beat the pizza bot section and it's 1:15, then it turns to 1:30. And if you beat the very broken office in the prize counter while it's 1:15, then it turns to 1:30. Then for Vanessa to catch you, it has to be 1:45, and they were very careful about this. Said Vanessa would not catch you at a time where she's not supposed to. And if you've seen my all jump scares video, you know Vanessa being picky is the source of a lot of the problems. And it turns to 1:45 right before, like just outside of the section, either the prize counter elevator or the room behind the laundry where Vanessa catches you. But sometimes you can hit a 1:45 trigger, but Vanessa still will not actually be able to catch you because you didn't hit the respective mission triggers that were required to. So it's complex. Then Vanessa sends to the Lost and Found, and it's 2 a.m. Now, in the old patch, this 2 a.m. time trigger was renewable. If you deloaded in the Lost and Found, or if you got in the Lost and Found early, it would always take you to 2 a.m. And they fixed it. So now, the only way to actually get... So Vanessa can teleport you to the Lost and Found sometimes, but only once will you get sent to 2 a.m. Even if you get the Vanessa who catches you and like teleports you there later in the game through a bug, you can get teleported to the Lost and Found, but you will not get sent to 2 a.m. And there's a few ways you can prevent that. However, 2:15 is a bit weird. So the boxes above Roxy Raceway, where Broken Freddy is, that updates the time to 2:15 no matter what. There's a window of time at the beginning of the game that's not there. However, at 12 o'clock, that's when Broken Freddy spawns in that area. He is not there at 11:30, but he is there at 12 o'clock. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know exactly when he despawns, it's somewhere around 2:30 or 2:45. One of these two. And that's when the time trigger leaves. However, so that means you have to get this time trigger or this time trigger in order to get this time trigger. But you can get it through a lot of different points. It is not specific. It does not have to be 2 o'clock to get 2:15. It can be anywhere from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, so it has a range. On the other hand, picking up the backstage pass always sets the time to 2:30, no matter what. It's unconditional. It always turns to 2:30 when you pick up the backstage pass. And similarly, putting in the Showtime disc always updates the time to 2:45. However, going down the elevator for the first time does not update the time to 2:55 and turn the lights out. It doesn't. It has to be 2:45, and then it starts that whole, like, Freddy gets dragged away by Moon, that whole sequence. Only once it's 3 do you have the 3:15 time trigger when you walk into the Parts and Service and Vanessa's talking to Freddy. 3:30 I'm unsure about, because you get the 3:30 time trigger after repairing Freddy, I think. And I don't know if it always turns to 3:30 if you give him the power upgrade, or if it has to already be 3:15. That could go either way. But what I do know is that picking up the party pass always sets the time to 3:55, and that will lead Moon to instantly kill you. But the party pass auto-saves you at 3:55, so you get to just walk to the recharge station and set the time to 4. So that's unconditional right there. Then, because again, there's split paths with the Monty route and the Chica route, so it has to be 4 o'clock to get the 4:15 time triggers, which you get from either picking up the Faster Blast gun after Faster Blast, or obtaining the Fast Camera. And then it has to be 4:15, or maybe just 4, because you can skip the camera and still get 4:30. At 4:30, that's when you pick up the Monty Mix or the Mazer-Size Control Key. Then, the 4:40 time trigger either comes when you leave the sewer and you go through those metal doors. When Fanny chases you, the metal doors shut behind you, and you're in the Staffbot silo. Or when you take Monty's claws. So that's the 4:40 trigger. And then it has to be 4:40 in order to actually get a lights out sequence when you repair Freddy, because otherwise you're supposed to do one of the repairs at 6 a.m. So this time update can only happen at 4 a.m. So that's why that happens, the 4:55 lights out time trigger for either putting Monty's claws or Chica's voice box in Freddy. The most famous unconditional time trigger is the robot head. Picking up the robot head turns the time to 5:15, no matter what. And it used to be that the robot head would reappear later after 6 a.m. You could rewind time to 5:15 again. This one's disputable. These last few are disputable. In order to get the 5:30 time trigger, you have to beat the arcade mission by repairing the head itself, which means you have to have hit the 5:15 time trigger originally. But it does not have to be 5:15 in order to get the 5:30 time trigger. You only have to have the head in your inventory. You could theoretically set the time to 5:15, pick up the backstage pass, setting the time back to 2:30, and then repair the head, going back ahead to 5:30. And then the 5:40 trigger kind of works the same way, I think. But I'm not sure. I think the 5:40 trigger appears, like it spawns in once you kill Roxy. Once you get that cutscene, then entering the vent when you leave the Roxy area sets the time to 5:40. Because you can get this without getting the head, I think. However, there's this last one. Technically, you could put in Roxy's eyes and get a 5:50 time trigger at any point in the game. If you rewind it back to 2:45 with the Showtime disc, then put in Roxy's eyes, you'd them in and you get a 5:50 time trigger. But in practice, Moon instantly kills you when the time updates to 5:50 if it's after 5 o'clock, because that's just how Moon works for some reason. So in practice, you have to be at 5:15 or 5:30, no matter what. You can go back, but you have to return to these times in order to survive a 5:50 time trigger and be able to advance to 6 a.m. And technically, the 6 a.m. time trigger you could qualify as separate, because if you get a lights out sequence at 5:50 and then you escape it by picking up the party pass and getting into that recharge station and canceling out nighttime, the 6 a.m. trigger still exists at the front door, and when you reach the front door, it still goes to 6 a.m. So, again, you have to have originally hit this time trigger, but then you can do other stuff before returning to this time. So you have your conditional ones, these are the picky ones, your unconditional ones that you can get any time, and your disputed ones that are either available within a range, or you have to get some sort of time trigger originally, but then you can go back and forth. It unlocks them being unconditional, but there's a prerequisite, sort of. So that's how conditional versus unconditional time triggers work in Security Breach. I hope this helps for the next time I'm just talking about them.